What if Ahsoka raised Luke and Leia? Ahsoka stood there, looking out over the countless graves. In them were men who she had known and cared for, and they had cared for her as well. Her body ached, having spent hours searching through the crash fender to find as many troopers as they could, then burying them all. She wondered what this all for, all the death, pain, heartache, and destruction. Why had it happened? What reason was there? She held her lightsabers in her hand, her last connection to her old life, her life of being a Jedi, a life with family and friends. She was about to let them fall out of her hand, to accept the death of her old self, when a pull in the force made her clutch them tightly instead. Turning to Rex, she apologized, but said something was calling to her and that they needed to go. As took off from the moon in the Y-Wing, Rex asked Ahsoka what was calling to her, and if she knew where it was. She didn't know what it was, only something familiar, but a certain place came to mind. It was a place she had never been to before, so it made no sense that she knew it. So it must be where this pull in the force was calling her to. She told Rex to go to Polis Massa, and they jumped into hyperspace. They arrived in orbit and proceeded to enter the planet's atmosphere. Ahsoka guides Rex where the pull was coming from, a tall building in the middle of the small city. As they landed, they noticed Padme's ship on the landing platform. As they make their way through the building, it becomes clear that it is a medical center of some sort. Ahsoka's pace quickens, trying to suppress the hope that was starting to spread through her. Maybe Anakin was still alive, and with Padme at that. She stops at a room with a window facing in. Inside the room lay Padme, with Obi-Wan by her side. She enters and rushes to Padme's side, wanting to ask about Anakin, but it becomes clear that she is in labor. She holds her questions, instead being there for Padme as she gave birth, holding her hand through it. Padme gives birth to twins, a boy and a girl, and it is only when Obi-Wan is handing them to her and Padme that Ahsoka remembers him. After holding both the twins for a moment and naming them Luke and Leia, Padme grabs Ahsoka's hand again and asks her, nearly begging, to protect the children and raise them, for her and Anakin. Ahsoka agrees and swears that she will do everything she can to not only protect the twins, but raise them and give them as good a life as possible. After hearing these words, Padme passes away. Ahsoka gently folds Padme's hands onto her chest and rises and looks at the twins. She gently picks up Leia, then looks over at Obi-Wan, who is holding Luke. Ahsoka doesn't know what to do or say, still in shock, but she manages to ask about Anakin. Obi-Wan is tempted to lie to her, saying that he died, which Anakin they knew did. But to prepare her, he admits that he had fallen to the dark side and they had fallen Mustafar. He had been gravely injured the last time he had seen him, but Palpatine, who was his Sith Lord, had arrived before he had jumped into hyperspace, so there was a chance he was still alive. Ahsoka could barely comprehend the words, but when he knew that he had attacked Padme, she forced herself to accept them, for the sake of the twins. A knock on the glass made them turn to find Yoda and Bell standing outside along with Rex. They go out and meet them, and Ahsoka greets them. They start discussing what to do with the twins, with Yoda suggesting splitting them up, but Ahsoka interrupts, refusing to allow them to be separated. She states that Padme had asked her to raise them, and she was going to honor Padme's dying wish. Obi-Wan confirms that Padme asked that, and is hesitantly agreed upon that Ahsoka would take and raise them. Belle offers that she could come and stay on Alderaan at any time as she wanted, and she accepted. She had no ship, at least not including the Y-Wing that Rex needed, and was not suitable to carry a pair of twins. She also knew little on how to raise children, only having the experience of visiting and looking after some younglings in the Jedi Temple. Yoda and Obi-Wan have a small talk alone before they depart together. Before they go, they tell Ahsoka that she can find them on Dagobah if she ever needed them, and she thanks them. Rex follows them to Alderaan, wanting to make sure that both Ahsoka and the Skywalker twins are safe. When they get there and land in the palace, Bail Organa takes them to his wife, the queen and ruler of Alderaan. She is excited not to only have guests over, but to have young children to raise. They had tried to have children themselves, but couldn't. She and Ahsoka quickly become friends and spend much of their free time together with the twins. Ahsoka never really had a maternal figure in her life, with only Plo Koon in her early life. More Jedi came in, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and others as well, but the closest woman she had been to was Barriss, who had betrayed her. Now Queen Brihal was taking care of her like her own daughter along with the twins, and she couldn't lie, it was nice. Ahsoka also saw Rex often for the first few days there, and she only learned before he left what he was up to. He and Bell were joining forces to fight the new Empire and Chancellor Palpatine. Rex wasn't out of the fight just yet, as his brothers are still being controlled by the chips. Bail Organa would provide chips, weapons, equipment, and information, In return, Rex would start freeing his brothers from the chip's control and start rebelling with those men. The clones are soldiers. All they knew was how to fight, and it was already becoming clear with the war being over that the Empire didn't know what to do with them. So, now they would fight for themselves and their brothers. Ahsoka wants to do something, but she won't endanger the twins. A solution comes to her when Rex mentions getting the chips out, though. Since she had to use the Force to get Rex's out, she figured that they would need to find a safe and certain way to remove them without a Jedi. She tells Rex to get clones, and they would start finding a way to remove the chips quickly at any medical facility. Rex gets several clones that are willing to listen to him, but to make sure to restrain them so Ahsoka would not be at risk. They don't do the procedure on Alderaan, not wanting to compromise the safety of the planet. Instead, Ahsoka meets Rex on a Corvette that Bell had given him, leaving the twins in Queen Breha's care. Using a medical droid, they start mapping the brain and finding the exact location of the chip. Once that is done, they follow the droid on how to safely remove it. It is completed, but they wait for the trooper to wake up before continuing. When he does and the scans show that he is fine, they move on to the next clone. It only takes a few before they finalize the process, making the removal of the chip safe, fast, and simple, and being able to be done with almost any medical droid. Ahsoka distances herself from the rebellion after that, feeling guilty that she wasn't doing her best to keep her promise to Padme. A few months pass with Ahsoka learning how to take care of the twins and the things that Druids didn't have, namely hair and how tangled it can get. She enjoys every moment of it, both being with the twins and Queen Breha, but she comes to the tough conclusion that she is going to have to leave. The Organas were kind and she was daunted at the challenge of raising Luke and Leia by herself. However, there weren't any other Togruta in the capital city, maybe not even on the planet, and most everyone that saw her remembered her. Most of the people were loyal to their queen, but the Empire was spreading its grip and she knew that sooner rather than later her presence would be reported as suspicious. If someone who knew anything about the war or the Jedi saw or heard about her, they would easily connect the dots that she was at one time a Jedi. Since there were only 3 Togruta in the Jedi Order, it wouldn't be hard to narrow down which one she was. She told this and that she was planning on leaving with the twins to Breha and Bell, and they sadly agreed, saying that the longer she was there, the more at risk she and Alderaan were. It was also best for the twins as the existence of Vader had become known. She told them what Obi-Wan had told her, that Anakin could be alive, and they suspect that Vader was Anakin, but had yet to confirm it. Bell had also informed Rex of this possibility. If Vader visited and the twins were there, then it wouldn't be hard for him to see that they could be his children. As a parting gift, Bell gives her a shuttle that wasn't registered, a ship that didn't exist. She took what meager possessions she and the twins had and boarded the ship. Breha's parting gift was a large amount of credits, which she unsuccessfully tried to refuse, and also insisting that she come back at any time if she wanted or needed help. Ahsoka thanks them before departing. She wanders the galaxy for a couple months, spending most of the time in space, only landing to get supplies and scope out worlds. She was tempted to settle on a planet that was uninhabited or at least had few inhabitants, which she found several of. But after the first month, she realized that until the twins got older and could start taking care of themselves, it would be best if she had some help in taking care of them. So with few options that wouldn't repeat the problem on Alderaan, her being one of the few if only Togruta, she decided to head to Chile. Though the twins would stick out there, she knew that Togrutas would welcome them and not report them to the Empire. Their communities were tight, and though welcoming of outsiders, they didn't fully trust them. However, with her being a Togruta, they would more easily let her become part of their community, even with human children, or maybe especially because of that. Ahsoka finds her in a remote village and is welcomed in. She had the shuttle in the forest, and this tribe rarely received news of the galaxy, so they were saved from both outsiders and from them receiving information that could harm them. She stayed there, raising the twins for the next several years. She helped hunt and protect the tribe, and they viewed her as a valuable member, with other Togrutas watching over the twins when she was away. As they grew, she couldn't deny that Leia resembled Padme and Luke resembled Anakin. Though Leia's personality reminded her of Anakin and Luke's out of Padme. It was an odd thing to see someone resembling Anakin being calm and compassionate, and the opposite with someone that resembled Padme being hot-headed and prone to emotions. She could feel that they were strong in the Force from an early age, yet she worked hard to hide their presence in the Force as well as hers. She started training them young to control their Force powers, both to be able to protect themselves and not wreak havoc whenever they had a tantrum. She taught them how she was taught in the Jedi Temple, incorporating things that she herself had learned through her life so far, like emotions, as long as they were positive, could help you, and it was okay to tap into the dark side, as long as it didn't let it consume you, and you weren't doing it out of anger or hate. As they got older, she demonstrated the lightsaber forms she knew and slowly taught them to them, using sticks she had found and carved to resemble lightsabers. When she believed they were old enough, she let them use her lightsabers, allowing them to see how they felt and handled. Ahsoka was content with staying there forever, but just after the twins' 6th birthday, while Luke and Leia were playing in the forest near the village, an Akul appeared. Their fear combined with their desire to protect each other caused them to unleash a blast of the Force. It threw the Akul back, allowing them to run. Ahsoka, who felt the surge of the Force and was near, rushed through them, but the Akul had run into the forest. The village immediately assembled a party to go hunt it down and kill it. Ahsoka was part of it, and they successfully tracked and killed the Akul. It was only that night, when everything had mostly calmed down and she had gone Luke and Leia to bed, that she registered everything that had happened, and she grew anxious. She hadn't been able to have their presence in the Force, or the surge of the Force that the twins had created. They had been too powerful. She wasn't concerned about their presence in the Force being revealed momentarily. There was no one around them to recognize them. But she was sure that the surge in the Force had reached far. Before she had left Alderaan, Bella told her of a new organization in the Empire. It was called the Inquisitorius, and it was made of former Jedi turned Sith. The main reason for existence was to hunt down surviving Jedi and Force sensitives. If any of them felt it, or Palpatine or Vader, then they were in trouble. Try not to panic, instead somehow getting herself to fall asleep. She would wait and see, though she would make sure to be ready if the Empire appeared over Shili. After almost a week of being on edge and being ready to leave, she started to relax. But on the evening of the 6th day after the incident, fighters flew over the village. She didn't waste any time. She had already packed and loaded most of her possessions on the ship. She still did not have many things, with her being brought up in the Jedi Temple, with the belief that the Jedi didn't have worldly possessions. However, she hasn't forced the same on Luke and Leia, and they had gathered quite a few things. Now she grabbed the few daily essentials she had left from their small home, throwing them into the pack, and ran to find Luke and Leia. They were close by, and on their way out of the village, she apologized to the village chief, and the Togrutas with him, thanking them for their kindness and generosity, and apologizing for any trouble she might have caused. They understood, and Ahsoka urged them to cooperate with the Empire so as to avoid harm and reprisal. They then quickly run to where Ahsoka has hid the ship, quickly boarding and powering it up. As she took off, she could see several shuttles landing near the village. After checking the scanners to make sure that there were no fighters, she flew off, initially staying low, close to the trees to avoid detection from both scanners in sight. Once she was a good distance away, she flew up and into space. She quickly told the astromech to jump to a random uninhabited area. Before the jump, she saw several of the new Star Destroyers in the accompanying fleet, as well as the new fighters patrolling around the fleet. She was worried about the Togrutas, and she wondered what would happen to them. After several random jumps to several random worlds across the galaxy, she reflected that she had wanted to live in seclusion with Luke and Leia. However, living on Shili was hard. It was a remote village, so they grew, hunted, and made almost everything they had. She had barely been able to keep up with them, since she had been raised in a temple with all her needs provided for. Now, she wasn't sure if she could live off the land in seclusion with the twins, though she didn't want to put any more people at risk either, being part of another community. She also didn't want to start settling down and building a home if everything could end in an instant with a single accident. She didn't know if she could take losing any more places she could call home or people she considered friends. A couple of weeks passed where they mostly stayed in space, only visiting a planet to get more food and refuel, and to occasionally sleep on the stars if Ahsoka felt it safe enough. Luke and Leia were getting depressed though, having spent most of their lives so far on a planet surrounded by lush living things under the sun and stars. So had gotten used to space during her time serving in the GAR, and eventually found something soothing about staring out at the empty void. She found a solution by chance during a stop to reprovision on a backwater planet. When she was in the only shop in town buying rations, she overheard a girl comment to the shopkeeper that their droid had broke. They were looking to get another one since there was no one that knew how to fix it. Ahsoka offered to fix it for a few credits, since the credits that Bella had given her were running low. The girl figured that she had nothing to do and showed her to her house. The droid wasn't in too bad condition, besides it being comprised mainly of non-original parts and heavily worn, and she managed to fix it quickly. She decided to stay on the planet temporarily, earn some credits, and wanted to let the twins have a break from living on the ship. She walked around town with them, getting a sense of it, and the people present and kind to her. Word had already spread about her work with the droids. People were eagerly trying to get her to look at their droids, both current and old ones. Through this, she learns of an abandoned house out of town, and when she asked, they tell her that she was fine to move into it if she wanted. She was hesitant to settle down, but Luke and Leia wanted to stay longer than a few days, eager to explore, see new things, and meet new people. So Ahsoka relents and decides to try settling down again. They slowly move into the house and make themselves at home, with Ahsoka making the necessary repairs and renovations to the home, which wasn't in too bad a condition, thankfully. Ahsoka fixes droids whenever they bring them to her and earns enough credits to survive, especially since she can charge whatever she wants, as she is the only one that can fix them on the planet, but she is generous and tends not to charge too much. This attracts people from nearby planets who come to have her repair their droids as well. She also got updated with what had happened and was currently happening in the galaxy. Though there are a few visitors and the connection with the HoloNet was sketchy at best, news still somehow reached this small town. What she heard shocked her. There was an active resistance against the Empire. There are strike teams hitting logistic bases, stealing credits, weapon supplies, and such, and subsequently the soldiers that were supposed to get those didn't. There were also strikes against larger fleets, and it wasn't uncommon to hear that the Empire lost a Star Destroyer in the accompanying fleet. Because of this, the Empire had to withdraw from several regions of the galaxy or risk being cut off. There are also rumors that the surviving Jedi were also fighting for the Resistance. Ahsoka knew from her time at Alderaan that the Resistance was likely the clones that followed Rex, but with her advanced aging, the youngest would have the body of a 30-year-old, and the oldest, like Rex, nearing their 40s. However, as she heard reports that even the Inquisitors were falling when they fought them, she started to wonder if she had done the math correctly. She was eager to know the truth of everything that was going on, and she knew that she could have just contacted or visited Bail Organa, but she held herself back, forcing herself not to think about it. Her job was to raise the twins. She was the only parent they had ever known, their mother in every way except for blood. They had always called her their mother, though Ahsoka did tell them about Padme and Anakin, though only the good parts. A year quickly passed on the planet without Ahsoka realizing it. There are good and bad people there, but they mostly welcomed her and didn't ask questions. She had nearly replenished her stash credits and fully stocked the ship with supplies, but things that were going good and leaving this planet wasn't on her mind. However, one day as she was walking with Luke and Leia through town, everything changed. A Star Destroyer appeared in orbit and ascended into the atmosphere. Ahsoka scoops up the twins, one in each arm, and runs towards home. Shuttles were landing within the hour, with the first soldiers setting foot on planet as Ahsoka and the twins made it home. Ahsoka wanted to quickly leave, but she forced herself to calm down. They likely weren't here for her and the twins. They probably didn't even know that a Force user was here, and she couldn't just get her ship and leave as fires are patrolling the skies above. There was a chance she could escape, but was more likely to be shot down, and she would not risk the twins. They stayed home for the rest of the day and just the next, but in the evening the next day, Ahsoka went to town to see if she could figure out why the Imperials were here. After talking to several people, she learned that since this planet was near a major hyperspace route, they were setting up a base to be a quick response force for when the Resistance struck. She was thinking that it was nothing too bad, though she did find it hard not to at least warn Bail Organa. But she knew that the Imperials were at least checking every communication coming and leaving the planet. However, as she was heading home, a quiet conversation made her stop cold. She interrupted them to make sure, not wanting it to be true, but they confirmed it. An Inquisitor had accompanied the Imperials and would be stationed here for the time being. For the next few days, Ahsoka doesn't allow Luke or Leia to go into town, and to only leave the house if there is no one around. They don't understand and are scared and worried, but Ahsoka tries to reassure them. She tells them that they would leave as soon as they could because the Imperials wanted them dead. However, it wasn't long before there was a knock at the door. Ahsoka knew who it was. She had sensed them approaching the house, a dark presence in the Force. It was the Inquisitor. She decided to play it cool and cooperate until they forced her hand. She opened the door and greeted the captain and his patrol that had accompanied the Inquisitor. They requested that all occupants come out so they could search the residence. She complied, bringing Luke and Leia to stand outside. She kept all the incriminating things on the ship anyway, which was hidden in a nearby cave, except for one of her lightsabers, which she had on her. While the soldiers searched, the Inquisitor stayed outside with them and another soldier. She tried to stay calm and collected, but his gaze stayed on her, only occasionally passing to children when they visited. They wore a helmet and mask that covered half their face, with the other half obscured in shadow, even in broad daylight. When they spoke, she nearly jumped. "What is your connection to the children?" "Their mother was my friend. She died giving birth to them. She asked me to raise them." I see. Do you not recognize me, Ahsoka Tano?" Ahsoka's gaze shot towards the Inquisitor, straining to see the part of the face that wasn't covered. Still, she couldn't see the face underneath, and she didn't recognize the voice. So she stayed silent, not answering and waiting for them to make a move. They remained still for a second, before they raised their arms. Ahsoka braced herself, but instead of grabbing the lightsaber at their waist, they grabbed their helmet and removed it, then the mask. Ahsoka stifled a gasp. The last time she had seen his face was when he was young, but now half his face was horribly scarred from what appeared to be burns, and she didn't want to believe that this was the same person. She only let herself whisper the name. "Petro?" A tight smile spread across his lips before a curt nod. He replaced the mask but got the helmet off. He opened his mouth, but the captain appeared and reported that there was nothing of note in the home, and it was clear. Petra nodded and put his helmet on. Before they left, Petra commented that perhaps they could catch up if she wanted. Ahsoka simply nodded and the squad descended back down into town. Ahsoka quietly watched the black uniform of Petra until he disappeared from sight. She made sure the twins were alright before going inside and rearranging what the soldiers had moved and searched through. She was torn. She wanted to know Petra's story and if he knew the fate of the other younglings that were in his group. But she also didn't want to stay with there being at least one person who knew who she was and could report at any time. She didn't know if Petra would do that. The Petra she knew wouldn't, but he was an Inquisitor now. She doesn't know him now. She decided to give him the benefit of the doubt though and wait for him to make the first move. She wanted to believe that he hadn't completely fallen, and if he had, then he could be redeemed. It gave her hope for Anakin. Ahsoka didn't have to wait long though. The second night after the army troops and Petra visited, Petra reappeared. It was nearly midnight and Ahsoka and the twins were asleep in the same bed per usual. They had slept together since the twins were young, as Ahsoka didn't want to leave their side. It was also because the house was chilly and this one were tiny, only one bedroom and really only room for a single bed. Now a soft knock on the push on the force made her wake up. She was instantly fully alert because of her experience fighting the war, and she immediately sensed it was Petra. She quickly and carefully got out of the bed, which was hard as twins slept on either side of her, but she managed to make it out without waking them. She held her lightsaber in her hand as she opened the door. She knew Petra was alone, but she was still wary. He wore a dark cloak over his black uniform, with his unique-looking lightsaber hanging at his hip. He was holding his helmet to his side, leaving only the mask on his head. He apologized for the late visit and asked if she wanted to talk. She hesitantly accepted and she left the house, closing the door behind her, not wanting to wake Luke and Leia. They go to some boulders that were near the house, something that Ahsoka initially thought of as cover. Now they sat on them and chatted. Petra said that he had been in the temple when it was attacked. Most of Padme's younglings were taken alive unless they put up too much of a fight. He wasn't sure what would have happened to them, but their fate changed as clones started resisting the Empire and the Empire started losing. They began training them all on the dark side, making them Inquisitors. The Inquisitors were turned into soldiers to fight, a large group of poorly trained Force sensitives that would hopefully turn the tide against the clones. They made an initial impact, but because they were poorly trained, they were easily killed or they just surrendered as soon as they could. Ahsoka asked about several young Jedi that she had known, but only knew about a few of them. Ahsoka then asked why he hadn't turned her in. He said that firstly she wasn't a Jedi and she was living peacefully, and second, he not only respected her but also needed her help. She asked him if he wanted to get away from the Empire and he admitted that he did, but first he wanted to help Katuni. They became closer after the ordeal during the gathering and stuck by and stood up for each other in the temple after Order 66. He told her that she had tried to resist becoming Inquisitor and was thus locked up. He wasn't sure what they were doing to her, but he couldn't live with himself if he just left her as he knew how cool the Empire was. As he was saying this, his hand drifted through the scar on his face, gently touching the mask covering it. She wanted to ask about it but held back. Instead she asked if he knew where they were holding Katuni. He did. They held all 4 sensitive prisoners in the Citadel. Ahsoka stilled, memories flooding to her. She knew why he hadn't done anything. He couldn't. Several clones and a Jedi Master had died the last time he was infiltrated. She stayed silent for a moment, contemplating, but eventually spoke, saying that she would think about it, but didn't like the idea of leaving the twins. He told her he understood, and they continued talking about lighter topics for the next couple of hours. After a while, he told her that he would have to get back or he would be missed. They said their goodbyes and he departed back into town. She had a hard time falling back asleep, thinking both about Katuni and her problems with Padme. She was trying to keep her problems with Padme by trying to keep the twins safe and raise them well, but it was hard, especially on the run. On the other hand, she wanted to help Katuni and the other Force sensitives in the Citadel. She didn't know if she could live herself if she did nothing. She already regretted a great deal, and she didn't want to regret more. Ahsoka thought about it for the next couple of days, and whether she could trust what Petra was saying or if he was lying. He was an Inquisitor after all. He had submitted to the Empire, unlike Katuni if this story is true. And if it wasn't, then she would be walking herself into her own prison and abandoning Luke and Leia. However, she felt through the force that Petra wasn't lying, so she decided to do some research to see if others knew what he was claiming. To do this, she had to get off this planet. She told the townspeople that she was going to get some droid parts on one of the more frequented planets in the sector, which she often did. And they nor the Imperials questioned it. Ahsoka took Luke and Leia with her, as she always did. They were forever craving for an adventure. Once she was on that planet, she dug through the hall in search of anything regarding Force sensitives in the Citadel. There are few things. The Empire was censoring those topics, but she did learn that the Empire hadn't abandoned lawless Seiyu, unlike almost every other planet they had held in the Outer Rim. Coming up empty, she prepared to head back home. Luke and Leia tired themselves out. She had bought several parts or droids which were much needed. However, while floating in space, taking the opportunity as the twins are falling asleep, she contacts Rex. She was planning on leaving him a message, but he quickly picks up. She greets him and apologizes for the sudden call, but he reassures her that it was alright, and good to hear from her. He had been worried and asked if she was alright. Ahsoka tells him she is before she asks about him. He told her that he was doing well. He asked what was bothering her and if it was the reason she had contacted him. She admits that it is and tells him about what Petra had said. Rex listens and stays silent for a moment after he finishes before he tells her that there were several Inquisitors that they had fought who had defected from the Empire and joined their cause. They all claimed that if they hadn't fought, then they would be sent to the Citadel, where a terrible fate was in store. Rex had confirmed that there were prisoners in the Citadel, and he knew at least some of them were Force-sensitive. He had a few former Jedi Padawans that wanted to break in and get them out. But Rex's intelligence had reported several high-ranking Inquisitors there, and he knew that those former Jedi Padawans weren't capable of defeating them. Ahsoka took a moment to think about it, but she had already come to a conclusion. She informed Rex that if he still wanted to break into the Citadel, she would accompany them. Rex asked if she was sure, asking about Luke and Leia, but she insisted, saying that they are Force sensitives and learning to control their powers, they would be showing their presence in the Force. They are already on the run from the Empire from the last time she couldn't hide them. She didn't want them to grow up on the run. If she could both hit the Empire and reduce the number of Inquisitors, the ones that sense when someone uses the Force, then she and the twins would be in a better, safer state. Rex understood and he said he would start organizing a squad to infiltrate the Citadel. Ahsoka told him that she would meet him after she dropped Luke and Leia off with the Organas. They ended their communication with Ahsoka telling him that she would contact him when she was ready to meet. She flew back home and pretended like everything was normal. In case she couldn't trust Petra, she didn't reach out to him and kept silent. She quickly packed everything and told Luke and Leia that they were going to visit Belle and Breha, people who she had told them stories about as they were growing up. They were worried as she was packing everything, but she told them that after this they would come back or possibly go back to Chile, that this was just a very special vacation. This got them excited, but she didn't warn them that she would have to be gone for a few days in order for this to happen. And though it did dampen their spirits, they were still eager. As soon as they took off from the planet, she traveled a fair distance away before jumping to hyperspace. This so she could safely send a message to the Organas and let them know that the ship was coming. She then jumped to several other planets and systems before finally arriving over Alderaan. When they landed in the palace, Belle and Breha came out to warmly greet her, and were energetic to see how big the twins had gotten. Luke and Leia were shy at first, but seeing Ahsoka with them and with her encouragement, they greeted them. It didn't take long before they acted like they had always known each other. Ahsoka waited till that night, letting the twins fall asleep to tell Belle and Breha what she was going to do and hoped to achieve from it. They were worried but fully trusted and supported her, telling her that they would gladly watch over Luke and Leia while she was away. She stayed with the twins for another 2 days, making sure they were comfortable and safe before she departed to meet Rex. They sent her coordinates and met a few systems away from the lawless Seiyu. It was an uninhabited moon on which she hid her ship. Rex arrived a few moments later, landing in a stolen Imperial shuttle. She knew instantly that not only was there a Force sensitive with him, but all the men he had brought along were clones. When he walked down the ramp and removed his helmet, it looked like he barely aged, though the lines on her face were deeper. Her shock and confusion must have been on her face as he told her that with funding from Alderaan, they had been able to find a scientist to stop the clones' accelerated aging early on. She congratulated him before he showed her inside. There she met Caleb Doom, who was both shocked and happy to see her, and she as well. Rex told her the plan, showing that this time they didn't have to freeze themselves in carbonite. They would act as stormtroopers, the Empire's elite soldiers, escorting Force-sensitive prisoners. They would land on the Imperial landing bay and walk into the facility. At a set time, a resistance fleet would appear out of hyperspace and engage the Empire's fleet in orbit, destroying it and jamming communications. They would just have to secure the facility, free the prisoners, and leave. He knew that it likely wouldn't turn out like that, but he hoped that it would. With Ahsoka brief, they set off. They quickly arrived over the planet, transmitting the clearance code secured by Rex, and then smoothly landed. Ahsoka and Caleb put on fake Force suppression collars and let the troopers lead them from the ship. There was a fuss with the commander in charge of the Citadel, as they were unplanned, but seeing 2 Jedi made him want to secure them first, then figure out who had messed up. However, as soon as the alarm sound let them know that the space battle had commenced, they dropped the act. Ahsoka nagged both her lightsabers and started cutting through any troop that didn't surrender. She knew the Leia and where the prisoners would be as she had been here before, and she also knew some of the traps. It was easier than before, and they didn't lose a single trooper on their way. However, 3 Inquisitors appeared, guarding the hallway leading to the prisoners. Ahsoka told Caleb to stay back as she stepped forward. She could feel they were strong, that perhaps they had been Jedi Knights before this, but she was confident. Though her lightsaber skills had grown lax as she had known to duel in the past 7 years, she had gone through all the lightsaber forms that she knew and was teaching them Luke and Leia, so she was well versed and fresh in them. But more importantly, she was more in tune with the Force and had a better grasp of it. She had been nearly constantly immersed in it, both in training Luke and Leia and using it to hide them. Now, with her mind at ease, she would fight using everything she had forced herself to remember for the twins. It wasn't a fair fight. None of the Inquisitors were too skilled, so perhaps they hadn't been Jedi Knights, but they had fully immersed themselves in the dark side, making them dangerous. However, the lightsaber skills were poor. They didn't even use a solid form of combat, and Ahsoka's Force abilities outmatched theirs. As they fell, Ahsoka thought that this was too easy, but looking up at the sound of more lightsabers igniting made her realize that they weren't intended to be strong. There were many of them, and were intended to defeat their opponent through their sheer numbers. So they also didn't know how to handle someone as skilled as Ahsoka, as soon all the Inquisitors were dead. She turned around to inform the squad that it was clear and caught Caleb staring in awe, with Rex commenting that she had improved. They quickly get moving again and arrive at the cells, meeting minimal resistance after the Inquisitors. After opening several, she was both relieved and saddened to indeed find Katuni in one. All the free prisoners so far were Force sensitives, ranging in age and all bore signs of having been experimented on or just plain torture. She couldn't tell which. Katuni was no different and had several wounds. However, upon seeing Ahsoka, Katuni jumps from her bed and rushes to her, grasping her in a fierce hug, and Ahsoka can feel tears soak her shirt. Katuni whispers to herself, asking if this is real. Ahsoka hugs her back and reassures her that she is safe now and will soon be off this planet. After a moment of Ahsoka holding Katuni in her arms, Katuni calms down and releases Ahsoka from the hug, wiping tears from her eyes as she thanks her for coming. They quickly rejoin the others, who had by now finished releasing all the prisoners, no more of which Ahsoka recognizes. They led everyone down to the landing platform where several more shuttles had arrived. On the way, Ahsoka stopped to where she had fought the Inquisitors and retrieved the kyber crystals from their blades. She wasn't sure why, but she felt they shouldn't leave them there. Rex also brought several Imperials that had surrendered, even an Inquisitor who was still alive, albeit severely wounded. There were more people than Ahsoka had thought, and she wondered if they could all get out immediately, even with extra shuttles. But Rex reassures her, saying that after the shuttles offloaded, they'd come back down. When she asks where they were offloading, Rex smirks and tells her that he had liberated several vendors from the Empire, who had been trying to decommission them. Kiro takes the shuttle that had the injured Inquisitor, and Katuni stays by Ahsoka's side and is thus on the last shuttle off the planet with her and Rex. Before she goes, Ahsoka reaches out with the Force, making sure that there is no one left in the Citadel. Once they reach the vendor, Ahsoka requests that they destroy the Citadel via orbital bombardment, so as no one would suffer there again. Rex eagerly complies, he also having hatred for the place. The Citadel crumbles under the fire and is reduced to molten slag. They then leave and jump to hyperspace. They stop by the moon where Ahsoka hid her ship. Then she, Rex, and Katuni board and stop for Alderaan. Rex wants to catch up and meet Luke and Leia, while Katuni doesn't want to leave Ahsoka's side. Even though Rex assures her that the Resistance would hide and protect her and the rest of the freed prisoners, still she is treated on board in the medical facility before they leave. The Resistance fleet disappears to a place unknown as Rex tells Ahsoka that someone will come pick him up in a few days. They all catch up as they travel to Alderaan, taking their time to make sure that they cannot be tracked. They arrive at Alderaan in good spirits and land in the palace. Ahsoka is eager to reunite with Luke and introduce them to Rex and Katuni. However, with her buoyant emotions, she almost misses the dark presence and a warning through the Force that something's wrong. Ahsoka stops in her tracks, making Katuni and Rex stop too. Before they can ask, Ahsoka charges forward. She doesn't have to go far, as in the Grand Hall stood several Inquisitors, stormtroopers, with Bell, Bria, Luke, and Leia handcuffed sitting on the ground. The foremost Inquisitor smiled as she appeared, and as Katuni entered, she whispers under her breath, naming him to be the Grand Inquisitor. Ahsoka recognizes him, he having once been a Jedi Temple guard. He tells her to drop her lightsaber and surrender, or he would start freeing the children that are gone of their limbs. Ahsoka gets furious. She hadn't gone and fought at the Citadel just to lose Luke and Leia or Bella Breha. She wouldn't allow them to be taken away from her so easily. Without warning or hesitation, she let her emotions, both positive and negative, consume her, and she charged forward, lightsabers igniting. The Grand Inquisitor, who still saw her as a Jedi, was unprepared when she charged him brimming with emotions and was thrown off balance. She's on him in an instant as a blur she got through both Inquisitor and Stormtrooper alike. She let her rage, anger, and fear fuel her, but also her love and joy. Didn't stand a chance, and though it felt like an eternity for Ahsoka, she had cut through all of them in just over a minute. She didn't waste any time, was kneeling in front of Luke and Leia, covering their bindings and hugging them. They had tears in their eyes, and she regretted making them see what she had just done, but she was glad that they were safe. The Grand Inquisitor spoke behind her, his voice strained. He told her that she may have defeated them, but Lord Vader was on his way. Once he got here, he would show no mercy. She wouldn't be able to defeat him. At least he had a chance of leaving Ahsoka's surrender to the Grand Inquisitor. Rex was on him as he finished talking, but when Ahsoka looked up, he shook his head. He had succumbed to his wounds. Katooni freed Bell and Brielle, and they urged Ahsoka to leave. Ahsoka didn't want to leave, not wanting to risk their lives, not wanting to believe that Vader was on his way. But a guard came running in, saying that a ship had just arrived from hyperspace and was trying to contact the Inquisitors. Ahsoka reached out and could feel the dark presence over the planet. Once again, the Organa's urged her to leave, and she numbly obeyed, running back to her ship, holding on to Luke and Leia with the Katooni on her heels. Rex stayed behind to try to help in any way he could, mainly during the resistance. Ahsoka powered up the ship and was taking off as the Imperial shuttle landed. The dark presence was so strong that she knew without a doubt it was Vader. As they left the atmosphere and jumped into hyperspace, Ahsoka could only hope that Rex, the Organas, and all Alderaan would survive Lord Vader. Ahsoka, Katooni, Luke, and Leia were constantly on the run. They avoided Imperial planets, staying in the Outer Rim, but the Empire and Lord Vader still managed to find them each time. Ahsoka didn't know how they knew where they were. The only thing she could think of was a tracking device. She didn't know when it could have been attached, but she didn't have time to stop and check as the Imperials were in system usually within the hour. The twins were disheartened because Ahsoka couldn't fulfill her promise of going back to their previous homes. Instead, they are now constantly on the move, unable to stay on a planet. Ahsoka was dejected too because of it, but she cared more about their safety than anything and wasn't going to allow the Empire to get a hold of them. They were near constantly on the move for nearly a month, and it was wearing Ahsoka out. Katooni had little experience, so Ahsoka had to be the one to fly the ship and make contact on planet to get supplies. Then on top of the stress and fear, she got little sleep. It all accumulated one day when the Empire got a jump on them, arriving the earliest yet. Ahsoka managed to take off and was about to jump to hyperspace, but the fire from the Star Destroyer hit the shuttle. With the hyperdrive powered up, this launched him into hyperspace on an unknown trajectory. Having been through something similar in the Clone Wars, Ahsoka powers off the ship, forcing it to exit hyperspace. They arrive over a planet that isn't on the database, and the ship is pulled into its atmosphere. Ahsoka quickly restores power, but only allows her to make the crash landing more smooth. Ahsoka made sure the Katooni and the twins were alright before exiting the ship and surveying the damage. It wasn't too severe, except for the engines were nearly completely destroyed, to the point she wasn't sure they could be fixed, especially with the little spare parts in no time. While surveying, she found a tracking device, tucked into the forward landing gear. She had little options, and she prepared herself for what she believed had to be done. Placing the tracking device in her pocket, she went back into the ship. There she found Katooni coming from the twins. Ahsoka was thankful they had gone close in such a short time, especially because of what she was planning. She took Katooni aside and told her that she would lure the Imperials and Vader away from the ship, while Katooni needed to contact the Resistance and flee with Luke and Leia. Katooni got distressed at the prospect that Ahsoka was insisting that they leave her behind, but Ahsoka got her promise her to protect Luke and Leia and put them first. She then went to the twins and told them that she would have to go, and that they should go with Katooni for the time being. They had an idea of what she was planning, having eavesdropped when she was talking to Katooni, and they weren't having it, grabbing onto her. However, Ahsoka made the false promises that were required to make them let go of her. She said goodbye to both of them before quickly leaving, setting off in a random direction before they could chase after her. Ahsoka continued walking for what felt like hours, even though each step she took made her more hungry and tired, inadvertently weakening her. The farther she walked, the less she thought she would be able to fight, and she was starting to stumble, the heat from the sun beating down her and taking a toll. She wished she had the foresight to grab some food and water before she left the ship, but she didn't want to waste any time, not knowing when the Imperials would arrive, and their food stores were already low as she hadn't had a chance to sufficiently restock them recently. Still, even with all that, Ahsoka kept on walking and was actually relieved when she saw an Imperial shuttle landing ahead of her. She finally let herself stop and watched as it landed. Its ramp lowered, and down walked a figure in full black suit with a cape trailing. She was half hoping for an Inquisitor, not wanting to face what she suspected Anakin to have become. But the presence in the Force is dark and strong, alien but familiar. This was Lord Vader, who was once Anakin. Ahsoka didn't wait and ignited both her lightsabers. She wouldn't be caught off guard. She couldn't dwell on the thought of him being Anakin, not now the twins depending on her. Vader did the same as he approached her. From the way he walked to the way he held his lightsaber, it was all Anakin. Trying not to let it distract her, she rushed forward to meet him, starting the battle on her terms. Their lightsabers clashed and she danced around him, both avoiding strikes and probing his defenses, looking for an opening. However, as she was already exhausted, she couldn't keep up her fighting style and switched to Form 3, hoping to stall him as long as possible. They seemed to catch him off guard though, so after a minute in that form she switched again. This time, however, Vader didn't hesitate and shoved her back with the Force, sending her flying. She landed hard, but quickly regained her footing and charged him again, switching to Form 4 and tapping heavily into the Force to help her. They collided hard, and while she slashed his face with her Shoto, his lightsaber grazed her leg, making her fall to her knee as she jumped away from him. Ahsoka looked up to find that she had cut off a portion of his helmet, which had to have been armored or something, as a strike should have cut his face off. Vader didn't allow her a moment's rest as he quickly advanced on her again. She stumbled to her feet, switching back to Form 3. She held out for a bit after that, but eventually broke through her defenses, using her weakened state to overpower her with his superior strength. Both her lightsabers knocked from her hands, forcing her to dodge the next strike, but she wasn't fast enough as it grazed her side and she fell to the ground again, pain making it hard to think and act. Lord Vader loomed over her, his breathing audible and heavy, but he kept his lightsaber at his side, instead looking down on her rather than killing her. Ahsoka didn't try to fight. She knew that he would just disarm her again, and she was hurt and burned out. She still located her nearest lightsabers though, as she just didn't want to be taken alive. Though Ahsoka was destroyed, she knew that there were other places where their fates were worse than death, and she also didn't want to risk giving up any information on the Organas, the Resistance, or especially the twins. It felt like they stood there for an eternity before he spoke, telling her to join him, that they could be together again and rule the galaxy together as master and apprentice. Ahsoka stayed silent, instead shifting her gaze into a glare. When he reached out with his hand is when she responded, saying that she would never return to the dark side. She would rather die. His breathing audibly caught, but he didn't hesitate as he raised the lightsaber, stating that then she would have to die. However, screaming behind her made him freeze and he looked up. Ahsoka also shifted on her side to look behind her and is horrified to see Luke and Leia running towards them, with the Katuni sprinting after them. As he got closer, Vader started walking towards him, his movement rigid as if he was in a trance. Luke and Leia were close enough that she could hear what they were saying. They were calling out to her, screaming mother and for the evil man to get away from her. Ahsoka began to panic as Vader continued towards them, lightsaber still in hand and the twins showing no sign of stopping. Ignoring her pain and leaden limbs, she scrambled to her feet, calling her nearest lightsaber, her Shoto, to her hand and charged after Vader. She stumbled on her own feet though, slowing her down, allowing Vader to get within yards of the twins. She didn't waste any more time though, and launched towards them with the Force. Vader seemed to snap out of the trance as he turned towards her at the last second, both the lightsabers hitting their mark. Vader fell back, Ahsoka's momentum making him fall, and Ahsoka went with them. The last thing she remembered was the twins mere feet away as her head hit Vader's suit hard, knocking her unconscious. When Ahsoka wakes up, she's confused with a familiar place and is momentarily distracted, having a hard time remembering what happened. However, when two bundles jump onto the bed beside her crying out mother, her memories return. She props herself up and grabs Luke and Leia in her arms, hugging them tightly, and they grab onto her as well. When she finally allows herself to take in the room, she confirms that she has to be on a vendor. This medical facility is way too familiar not to be. Katuni was sitting on the bed to her right, likely where the twins had come from. She was smiling and looked like there were tears in her eyes, her face one of relief. As the twins snuggled up to Ahsoka, Katuni fills her in what happened. Katuni had managed to contact the Resistance, who had been apparently chasing after the Empire's fleet that had been chasing them. They were quick to arrive and engage the Imperial fleet. They sent a shuttle to pick her and the twins up, then they went in search of Ahsoka. However, fighters intercepted them and they were forced to land until the Imperial forces were dealt with. But the twins refused to stay put and ran off to find Ahsoka themselves. Katuni, still recovering from her ordeal at the Citadel, couldn't catch up. They had coincidentally landed not far from where Ahsoka had been fighting Vader, and that is why they got there so quickly. Not long after Ahsoka was knocked out, the clone troopers had found them again. They quickly got Ahsoka along with the twins and Katuni out to the vendors, rushing Ahsoka to the medical bay to be treated. Luckily, all her wounds are non-lethal, though the last blow, which got her shoulder, did go through her lung. The lightsaber thankfully cauterized it, so it wasn't too serious. Ahsoka tenderly asked what became of Vader, to which a voice in the door mentioned that this is where they should continue to tell. Ahsoka turned, but already knew it was Rex, with Echo by his side. She was relieved to see him alright and immediately asked about the Organas. He told her that they were safe, that Vader didn't do anything to them. He was too intent chasing her and the twins. Vader had captured them all alive, then just quickly left, leaving them with some stormtroopers. The Resistance was there the same day, expecting to fight Vader. They easily wiped out the few troopers he had left. Rex informs her that he had already told the Organas that she and the twins were safe too. He then brings it back to her original question. Her final strike had hit Vader's respirator and a few other major life support functions, fatally crippling him. The troopers had stunned him and dragged him onto a shuttle. They don't want to risk leaving him alive or pass up the opportunity to get information from Palpatine's enforcer. They took him to a different medical bay from Ahsoka, removing his suit, cybernetics, and placing him in a back tank on life support. He had force restraints on him as well, making it near impossible for him to fight, much less escape. Ahsoka had mixed feelings about that, both happy that Anakin was still alive, but also saddened at how hurt he was and that he was now helpless. She put those thoughts aside though, and focused on healing as well as comforting the twins for the next little while. Though he had put her in a back tank as well, she was still sore and suffering from exhaustion. They stayed with the Resistance on board the Vendor, Ahsoka knowing that this was the safest place for the time being, and she could have got the twins to continue comfortable with the massive ship. When she gets up the courage, she asks Rex to take her to Vader. They had taken him out of the back tank a few times to question him, and he had been completely compliant, truthfully answering anything they asked and not resisting. The only thing he had asked in return was to meet Ahsoka. Now she went to meet him, not having the heart to refuse his request. She stood back as he brought him out of the back tank and laid him on the bed. Then most of the clones left, though a few stayed, including Rex and Echo, the latter being in charge of Vader. When Vader spoke, Ahsoka was surprised to hear his voice being much better than when he had spoken on planets, though it was still raspy. He awkwardly asked if she had been doing well, to which she curtly retorted that besides him running from the Empire, yes, she was. He took a moment to speak again, thinking over his words. This time he cut straight to the point, and asked who the parents of the twins were. She promptly told him that she was their mother. He rephrased it by asking who gave birth to them. Ahsoka waited to respond, instead reaching out with the Force to fill him, his presence. He was no longer a dark presence in the Force, though he still wasn't a beacon of light either. She warned for him to be redeemed, even if the Jedi claimed that if you fall to the dark side you were lost. She just didn't know how much she should risk for her wish. Sighing, she decided to just tell him. He likely already suspected the answer. They both looked so much like their parents. His expression didn't change as she told him that they were Padme's and his children, their names being Luke and Leia. He stayed silent for a moment before thanking her for everything she had done for them so far, and I hoped he would make it up to them for every wrong choice he had made. Their conversation ended soon after, with the trooper swimming back in the back to tank. Ahsoka wanted to believe that he was redeemed, or at least on his way, but she refused to get her hopes up, and instead just put him out of her mind. She, the twins, and continued to stay on board the Vendor for the next couple of weeks. However, soon a new shuttle arrived from Bell and Breha, another gift from them. Rex had gotten all their personal belongings from the previous shuttle, so Ahsoka went about familiarizing herself with the new one and loading their things onto it. When she was set, Rex dropped her, tuning the twins off a Resistance-aligned world where they could live in relative safety for the time being. They managed to settle down there and get comfortable, especially since the Empire was in disarray from the death of so many loyal Inquisitors and the missing Lord Vader, along with the Resistance being able to strike easy and sensitive targets and avoid strong ones and traps with intelligence told them by Lord Vader. Though after a few months the Empire was still managing to stay alive, Ahsoka began to believe that the Empire couldn't collapse. However, word quickly began to spread that the Emperor had been killed. She found it hard to believe at first, but soon Rex contacts her and confirms that he was indeed dead, killed by a strike force assembled by the Resistance, one that was led by Anakin Skywalker. Ahsoka was shocked at hearing Rex use that name and confused as to why. Rex explained that Anakin had made considerable efforts to help the Resistance, telling them everything he knew. Rex and Echo agreed that the next logical step was to get him new, better prosthetic limbs, and see if he would help them in the field, which he did. He had several successful missions before Anakin suggested that in order to defeat the Empire, they had to kill Palpatine. A team was assembled around him and he drilled them to give him a fighting chance. Then they went to Coruscant, and Anakin successfully engaged and killed Palpatine. The Senator is loyal to the Resistance, those including Mon Mothma, Bell Organa, and Ryu Chuchi, were currently fighting the Senate to reverse the damage done by Palpatine and turn the Empire back into a republic, thus ending the war peacefully. Ahsoka was ecstatic to hear the news, but what Rex said next put a damper on it. He told her that Anakin was acting like his old self, and the only thing that he asked for, time and time again, was to talk to her and spend time with her, Luke, and Leia. He urged her to consider meeting him again, to give him a second chance like they had, but Ahsoka didn't know she should, especially if it meant putting the twins at risk. His actions had led to Padme's death. She wasn't sure what he might do with the twins, even if accidentally, even if he was redeemed. She knew that she had hoped and prayed for him to be redeemed, but now that he appeared to be, she wasn't sure where to go from there, and whether to trust him. Ahsoka also didn't want to burden and confuse or scare the twins. They knew that she wasn't their birth mother. She had told them about their real parents. But she had raised them and had been their mother their entire lives. If Anakin suddenly entered their lives, how would they react knowing that he was their father? Would they be happy or hurt? She refused to tell them the truth yet, that he was their father and had done terrible things, including harming their real mother, and that he had once been Vader. She didn't want to tell them until they were older, but she had taught them to recognize people in the Force, and they could potentially recognize Anakin as Vader. Luke might sympathize with him, but she knew Leia would resent him for at least hurting Ahsoka. She thinks about it for the next few days, and eventually relents and decides to try to trust Anakin again, but to start slowly, for her sake. She would meet him by herself for a while to gauge if he was a threat to her and the twins, and if not, then she would introduce Luke and Leia to him. Ahsoka arranged this, leaving the twins with Katuni. During their first meeting, she is surprised when she sees him again because he looks so much like the Anakin she remembered, albeit heavily aged. Through their first several meetings on a vendor that he was posted on, they caught up and just chatted while Ahsoka filled him out. His presence in the Force is different, but not like it used to be, more neutral, and he appeared to be gentler. She decides to introduce him to Luke and Leia sooner than she expected, as he had won her over, though she did warn him that they might not accept him or even like him to begin with, which she was fine with and understood. Instead of bringing him to them, she brought them to the vendor with her. She lands the shuttle and leads them off it. Anakin meets him in the hangar and is standing a few feet away watching them. She hadn't told Luke and Leia anything about Anakin, just wanting for them to decide for themselves if they wanted him in their lives. She didn't want to tell them that he was their father yet, and they feeling forced to accept him, and she made sure Anakin understood this as well. Luke and Leia didn't appear to trust him at first, though they didn't say anything about recognizing him. For the first few encounters and meetings, he always had Ahsoka between Anakin and them. Though as time went by, they became more comfortable around him. When they asked her who he was, she told them that he had been her teacher and mentor, but they didn't have to trust him or like him if they didn't want to, that they shouldn't if their instincts told them not to. During this time, the Empire was officially dissolved by the Senate and reverted back to the Republic. There were still Imperial holdouts across the core regions, but they were systematically dealt with. A new Chancellor was elected, one she didn't recognize, but the Republic still wasn't whole. Most of the Outer Rim areas refused to rejoin, instead of creating their own governments. This was mostly accepted, albeit hesitantly, as the galaxy didn't want any more war. Even the people called another separatist cause and demanded subjugation. As the galaxy healed, Luke and Leia began willingly seeking out and spending time with Anakin. They wanted to learn more about lightsabers in the Force as well as the galaxy as a whole. Since she now trusted Anakin again, though she still had to scold and correct him in certain matters, both involving parenting and what he should and shouldn't say to them, and how to phrase it, especially with his swearing, which appeared to have gone worse. Besides that, Ahsoka was fine with leaving the twins with him, especially since Katuni was also tagged along to watch over them. This allowed her to go out by herself, as she wanted to learn more about all the Force-sensitive groups that had existed in the galaxy, as well as the old Jedi. She herself wanted to learn, but she also wanted to teach Luke and Leia more things about the Force. During one of these outings, searching for remnants and records of both Jedi and other Force-sensitive groups, she finds coordinates in an uncharted region in a Jedi outpost. When reaching the area, she finds that there's nothing there except for a ship dead in space. On board, she was delighted to find Master Hu Yang. Ahsoka had purified the kyber crystals that she had taken from all the Inquisitors, and with finding Hu Yang, she decided that it was time to let Luke and Leia build their own lightsabers. They were ecstatic when she returned with the news, and they immediately started. Hu Yang helped them, but Ahsoka and Anakin were also there to help as well. Ahsoka showed them the crystal that she had taken from the Inquisitors and told them to reach out the Force and see if one was calling to them. Surprisingly, they both felt one calling to them and intently picked them up, and the lightsaber building process began. Even though Ahsoka tried to get them to take a break, Luke and Leia were dedicated and within days built their own lightsabers. Katuni also joined in, selecting the Kyber crystal from Ahsoka and building a new lightsaber since her old one had been taken. When they ignited their blades, Leia's and Katuni's were light sky blue while Luke's was a light green. As peace ascended into the galaxy, and as Luke and Leia got older, they, Ahsoka and Anakin grew inseparable, nearly always being with each other. Katuni reunited with Petra and they tended to stick together as well, with them occasionally tagging along with Ahsoka, Anakin, and twins on their adventures. During the time with them, Ahsoka and Anakin taught them the ways of the Force and lightsaber combat alongside Luke and Leia, who were quickly becoming a force to be reckoned with. Ahsoka found a place for her and the twins called home on a quiet, barely inhabited world full of trees and mountains. Though they still were frequently out exploring the galaxy, it was a nice place to come back to when they wanted. Through the years together, they became a close-knit family, and they stayed like that, uninvolved in galactic affairs and exploring whatever world that caught their attention.